Have you ever felt like the odd one out in your own family? It's like being at a grand party where everyone is laughing, sharing stories, and having a great time, while you're the only one in a corner, stomach empty, just watching the show. On the occasion of my father-in-law, Mr. Michael Miller's retirement party, his entire family headed to one of the most luxurious hotels in downtown Chicago. But for some reason, they decided to leave without me. Almost 3 hours passed. I was alone in a small gastropub in Lincoln Park, eating a spicy buffalo chicken mac and cheese. Suddenly, my phone screen lit up. It was a call from my loving husband. "And what do you think?" he said. He shamelessly asked why I wasn't at the celebration. To top it all off, he insisted that I should be the one to pay the bill. That simple call shattered 6 years of patience and tolerance that I had accumulated. My name is Jessica, and it has been 6 years since I married into this family. Here, I have always been a shadow, an unnoticed presence. Today was my father-in-law, Michael's, retirement party. According to American tradition, a day like this deserved a grand celebration. Since last week, my mother-in-law, Karen Miller, had been relentlessly organizing everything with great fanfare in the family iMessage group. She insisted that we reserve the most elegant ballroom at the Drake Hotel, emphasizing the importance of maintaining their image. The chat was on fire. My brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, Emily Miller, and my husband David were vigorously debating the menu and gifts. I remained silent, not because I didn't want to participate, but because I knew that even if I spoke, no one would listen. At these family gatherings, my role was always predetermined. Arrive early to reserve seats, discreetly signal the waiter to change the plates, and finally, take care of packing up the leftovers. I was like another piece of furniture. However, 5 p.m. arrived, and no one had sent me a message with the exact time and place. The last message in the group was from the previous night, a discussion about whether to give my father-in-law expensive golf clubs or a complete medical checkup at a private clinic. Suddenly, I got a nervous feeling. A bad premonition washed over me. I opened the chat with my husband, David. "Your dad's retirement party. What time does it start? Which ballroom at the Drake?" I wrote. But there was no answer. I waited for 40 minutes, but my message still had only one check mark. I sent another one. Then, an error message appeared below the text. "Message not delivered. This contact has blocked you." I froze where I stood. I couldn't believe my eyes. David had blocked me, and all because the other day I had complained a little that his mother controlled his entire salary. My heart was beating fast. A wave of shame washed over my body. I tried to calm myself and called his phone number. After a few rings, he finally answered. In the background, the noise of conversations and laughter could be heard. He didn't sound like he was in a car. "Hello?" His voice sounded annoyed. "David, your dad's retirement dinner?" "Oh, I'm driving right now. I'm busy. Let's talk later." He abruptly hung up before I could finish my sentence. I called again, but the line was busy. I sat down on the sofa. My hands and feet felt cold. What did all of this mean? This time, I called my mother-in-law Karen. She answered immediately. Her voice was full of joy. In the background, I could hear the laughter of my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, Mom, about the dinner. "Oh, is that you, Jessica?" Her tone immediately shifted. "Look, you don't need to come. There aren't enough seats. And besides, this is just a family gathering. If you come, it will be awkward for us." "Okay, I have to go. We're almost there. Not family." I repeated those words to myself unconsciously. "Okay, I have to go." She ended the call without hesitation. Listening to the monotonous dial tone, I remained seated, bewildered, for a long time. Not enough seats, our family. So that was it. From the beginning, I had never been a part of their family. For the past 6 years, I had diligently played my role as a daughter-in-law. I silently endured my mother-in-law's criticisms. I bore my sister-in-law's arrogance with a smile. I patiently listened to my brother-in-law's bragging. And even though I was compliant, my own husband treated me as if I were invisible. I always thought, we are a family. Unity brings happiness. If I take a step back, I will see a wider world, But in the place where I lived, there wasn't even an inch of ground for me to stand on. They organized the party and mercilessly took away my right to attend. I was their legitimate daughter-in-law. They didn't even bother to inform me. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I forced them back. It wasn't worth crying for people like them. So you want to have fun by yourselves? Perfect, I thought. Tonight, I will celebrate myself. I opened my phone and, without hesitation, reserved a table at that gastropub in Lincoln Park, famous for its spicy mac and cheese. If I was an obstacle, there was no need for me to ruin their mood. I would eat my mac and cheese alone. I would top it with the best buffalo chicken and a delicious spicy sausage, and I would accompany it with a cold craft beer to clear my mind. I carefully put on my makeup, wore my favorite dress, and left the house with my head held high. Sitting in a comfortable corner of the pub, I watched how the orange cheese sauce bubbled in the cast-iron skillet. The pieces of chicken danced in the simmering sauce. I dipped them in a homemade ranch dressing and put a forkful in my mouth. The taste was amazing. A feeling of invigorating freedom that I had never felt before flowed through my entire body. Eat a lot at your party. Enjoy your contempt. At that moment, I was living only for myself. Vibrantly. I took a few pictures of the food and uploaded them to an Instagram story with the text, "A little treat just for me. Isn't this also wonderful?" Of course, I adjusted the privacy settings so that my in-laws couldn't see it. I didn't want them to. As I was savoring a piece of sausage, with a few drops of sweat on my forehead, the phone rang. The name David appeared on the screen. Why was he calling at this hour? What could he be planning? A strange feeling washed over me. The ringtone seemed to repeat itself, almost mockingly. I looked at the letters that formed David's name on the screen, and a mixture of emotions overcame me. The sadness of being blocked and the anger of being excluded transformed into a slight tremor at my fingertips. I took a deep breath and answered the call. As usual, I pressed the record button. It was a habit I had developed to protect myself, ever since he broke his promise to buy my mother the blood pressure monitor she needed. Yes, I tried to make my voice sound calm, almost drowsy from the hot steam of the mac and cheese. "Jessica, where are you?" David almost roared. In the background, the sounds of toasts and clinking silverware could be heard. The party was in full swing. "Why can't I see you here? Where did you go?" I had to stop myself from laughing. "And where am I supposed to be?" I answered calmly, while chewing on a piece of chicken I had just taken from the skillet, tender and delicious. "Where are you supposed to be? It's Dad's retirement party. The whole family is here, gathered in the grand ballroom of the Drake. And you're the only one missing. What kind of behavior is this? Get over here now." The nature of how he insisted was astonishing. He was treating me as if I had received a gold-edged invitation and still hadn't shown up. The truth was, they had completely ignored and blocked me. I took a sip of my beer. The cold liquid calmed the anger I was feeling inside. "Ah, the Drake Hotel. I've heard it's quite expensive to rent a ballroom there," I said, feigning innocence. "But nobody told me to go. In fact, this afternoon your mother personally told me that it was just a gathering for your family, and that if I went, you would all feel awkward, so it was better for me not to go." There was a sudden silence on the other end of the line. He certainly didn't expect his mother to have said that, or for me to bring it up so directly. Amidst the background noise, I could hear my mother-in-law's shrill voice. "Who is it? Ask her where she is." So disrespectful. Then I heard my brother-in-law's slurred, slightly drunk voice. Unbelievable, just unbelievable. Even though David tried to cover the receiver, I heard his whispered excuses. "But Mom, you said you didn't tell her." "Ouch, Mom, why did you pinch me?" After the commotion, David's voice came through clearly again, full of a forced arrogance as he tried to control the situation. "Look, even if Mom didn't say it clearly, because she's not from this family, shouldn't you have known that you needed to come on a day like this? You're so slow-witted. Stop being neglectful and get over here." I couldn't help myself and let out a laugh. "David, you blocked me on iMessage. You ignored my calls, and your own mother told me not to come. And now you're blaming me for not coming on my own? Your family's rules are certainly amusing." Again, a deafening silence on the other end. I could imagine his face, red with anger and embarrassment. He was always like that, choosing to ignore the mistreatment his family inflicted on me, and the moment there was a problem, he would blame me. He suddenly cut me off, as if he didn't want to argue about the topic anymore. "Come on, hurry up. We're about to finish dinner, so you'll arrive just in time." He paused, and then his voice suddenly dropped. His tone was a command filled with insulting naturalness. "Oh, and on your way, take care of paying the bill. I was in a hurry today and didn't bring enough cash. Mom and the others also spent all their money on Dad's gift, so, hurry up." I was completely frozen, holding the phone. Honestly, in my entire life, I had never heard such an absurd request. The whole family was joyfully celebrating their father's retirement, having excluded me, the only daughter-in-law. And now that they were full, they remembered me to pay the bill. What did they think I was? An ATM? With legs? A professional fool? The orange mac and cheese in the gastropub in Lincoln Park continued to bubble happily, releasing a bold and spicy aroma. I looked at the chicken, the sausage, the pasta in front of me, and I suddenly felt a profound sense of calm. "Pay the bill," I repeated in a voice devoid of emotion. "Yes, stop dawdling and come on," he insisted impatiently. "And how much is it at the Grand Ballroom, if I'm not mistaken, David?" I cut him off, speaking slowly and clearly. "Your family is happily celebrating your dad's retirement, having excluded me, and now that you're done eating, you're asking me to pay. Do you think that's reasonable?" "What's not reasonable? You're my wife. What's wrong with asking my wife to pay? It's your duty, isn't it?" he said with such confidence, as if it were a universal law. My duty. I savored those two words. All the sadness and anger that I had suppressed for the past 6 years seemed to have finally found an outlet. How foolish had I been to think that if I endured and shouldered it all, I would earn their approval? "Come on, stop talking nonsense and get over here," he continued to shout amidst the background noise. My sister-in-law Emily's shrill voice was particularly annoying. "Big brother, tell her to come now. I have plans later. I don't like people who drag their feet." My mother-in-law also chimed in. "That's right. She can't even do one simple thing right." So I took my fork and slowly stirred the orange sauce in the skillet. The color was vibrant and beautiful. "David," my voice was very soft, but clear enough to be heard on the other end of the line. "Enjoy your luxurious feast." I paused intentionally, savoring the brief silence and anticipation on the other end. Then, with a smile, I said into the receiver, enunciating each syllable, "And I'll continue eating my mac and cheese. Honestly, with the extra sausage I added, it's delicious." As I did that, I could clearly hear David's rapid breathing and his mother's whispers of dismay. "But what is she saying?" Emily's voice sounded impatient. "Big brother, is she coming or not? I just got a manicure and I don't want to ruin it." With a slight smile, I said in a very calm voice, "The bill, naturally, should be paid by the one who consumed. Is there a problem, Jessica?" "But what are you saying?" David's tone suddenly rose, full of anger and disbelief. "Have you gone crazy? I'm asking you to pay to do you a favor. Don't refuse my kindness when I'm talking to you nicely." "Do me a favor?" I laughed. "Did you do anything to do me a favor? Excluding me from the retirement party is your family's way, the Miller's way, of doing me a favor. Maybe now that you need a fool to pay, you remembered my face, David. Is that how you use honor in your family?" He was silenced by my response. Perhaps he never imagined that I, who had always been so obedient, would be able to retaliate like that. The background noise turned into chaos. The shrill voice of my mother-in-law, Karen, erupted. "David, give me the phone. I'll talk to her. Has she gone crazy? Where did she get that kind of courage? The heat has gone to her head." My mother-in-law's aggressive voice exploded in my ear. "Jessica, I'm warning you. Who do you think you are to rebel? When we tell you to come and pay, it's to give you a chance to show your respect as a daughter-in-law. Don't be rude and come here to pay. If not, you'll see what happens to you." With complete composure, I took a piece of pasta and dipped it in the bubbling orange sauce. "My dear mother-in-law," my tone was very serious. "It's not that I don't want to show my respect, but this afternoon you yourself told me that this was just a gathering for your family, and if I went, I would be an inconvenience. I'm afraid to go and ruin your and my father-in-law's mood. Why are you now saying that I'm ungrateful? You. Where did you get those things? My mother-in-law, unable to provide an answer to my words, started to speak nonsense. Did I tell you not to come, and so you didn't come? Since when have you been so obedient to me? It's obvious you did this on purpose. You did it to embarrass us. What bad luck our Miller family has to have an animal like you. That's right, sister-in-law. Emily's voice also came closer to the receiver. Her tone was full of arrogance. If my brother says you pay, and that's it. What's the story? Shouldn't a woman earn money to contribute to the house? You have no spirit of sacrifice. Listening to the accusations coming and going, I felt as if I had committed a heinous crime. My only crime seemed to be not acting like the obedient fool they expected. The pasta was cooked enough, soft and tender, soaked in the spicy sauce. It was delicious. I took a deep breath. It seemed that sound was transmitted through the receiver and made them even more annoyed. Jessica, what's that noise? Where are you, really? David must have snatched the phone back, his voice angry. I said nonchalantly, at a mac and cheese place. I told you earlier, the sauce is delicious. Oh, and the pasta? I just tasted it. It's so soft. You went to eat good food by yourself? His voice turned furious. The whole family is here celebrating Dad's retirement, and you're alone eating mac and cheese? Don't you have a conscience? Conscience. I put down my fork and wiped my mouth with a napkin. Conscience is used for people who have it. Did you think about your conscience when you excluded me, and now you're asking me to pay for a dinner that costs thousands of dollars, and you're talking to me about conscience, David? Double standards are not used the way you do. Stop with the nonsense. I'm asking you for the last time, are you coming to pay or not? He finally showed his true colors and gave me an ultimatum. I also took off my last mask and replied in a cold voice, and I'm telling you for the last time, I'm not going. The one who ordered pays. Good. Very good. So, you are amazing. You have some nerve, he said with a cold laugh full of anger. You'll pay for this. You'll see what I do to you when I get home. What will you do to me? I smiled slightly. David, did you forget something? What? He asked instinctively. Your salary and your bonuses are under the complete control of your mother, I said calmly. What are you going to do to me with the small allowance she gives you? A complete silence fell on the other end of the line. My words were like a sharp needle that pierced his bubble of arrogance. Perhaps he finally remembered the simple fact that economic freedom determines one's status in a family. For 6 years, under his mother's pretext that it was to save for your future, he had handed over all his income. From rent to groceries, all the large and small expenses of the house were almost completely covered by my salary. With the money he carried in his pocket, he probably couldn't even afford to pay for a small fraction of that dinner. I could hear the shock in his mind and the anxious voices of his mother and sister next to him. What is she saying? What does she mean you don't have money? Oh, and actually, I delivered the final blow. My voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to break the deafening silence on the other end. I forgot to tell you. Today, I was feeling so good that I added the most expensive craft beer they had to my mac and cheese. It was a bit pricey, but unfortunately, I can afford it. After saying that, without giving him a chance to respond, I hung up the phone. Suddenly, the world fell silent. The orange sauce continued to bubble, and the delicious food on the plate shone enticingly. My heart was beating a little fast, but it wasn't out of fear, but out of a euphoria I had never felt before. 6 years. This was the first time I had confronted them in the strongest way possible. Everything I had suppressed inside was liberating. However, I knew this was just the beginning. Knowing his family, they wouldn't let it go so easily. In fact, not even a minute had passed when my cell phone started to vibrate intensely. On the screen, the names alternating were my husband and my mother-in-law. Then, the sound of iMessage notifications started to ring incessantly. It seemed I had been added back to the family group I had been blocked from. In an instant, a dozen messages appeared. Without even needing to read them, I knew they were full of the lowest insults and accusations. I calmly drank my beer. I didn't answer the phone. and I didn't look at the messages. Let them be consumed by their frustration and anger. First, I needed to calmly enjoy my prized mac and cheese. After all, to fight, you need a full stomach. The phone rang hysterically until it finally stopped. But the iMessage notifications continued to arrive without stopping. I picked up my cell phone and opened the family group. As expected, it had over 99 unread messages. My mother-in-law, Karen Miller, a series of 60-second voice messages. I didn't need to listen to them to know it was a rosary of insults. My sister-in-law, Emily Miller, Jessica, are you even human? Doing this on such an important day for Dad. Get over here and pay right now. My brother-in-law, Robert Miller, Jessica, sister-in-law, you're wrong here. You're so disrespectful. Come on, don't make the elders angry. And even some relatives I barely spoke to came out to give hypocritical comments, pretending to be impartial. I looked at them and was about to put my phone down when a new message appeared. It was an SMS from my father-in-law, Michael Miller. Jessica, I'm very disappointed in you. When I read that sentence, I suddenly burst out laughing. Disappointed. Who was disappointed? In whom? For 6 years, I had tried to please them like a clown, but all I received was criticism and contempt. Even when my mother fell seriously ill and needed money urgently, and I had to beg David to ask his mother for a little of our money, what did his family tell me? My mother-in-law said, "What money? It's long been spent on your daily expenses. Or do you think what you eat and use every day falls from the sky?" David said, "Don't cause trouble. Do you think Mom is stealing our money?" And my sister-in-law said, "Sister-in-law, your family is a bottomless pit. Don't drag us into it." The coldness of that moment was 1,000 times heavier than the simple, "I'm disappointed in you today." I moved my fingers and typed in the text bar, "Happy retirement." Since it seems from the beginning you didn't want me to participate in this celebration, I don't think I need to pay the bill either. The right thing to do is for the organizer and the one who ate to pay. The logic is simple. As for being disappointed, I think we feel the same way. I pressed send and logged out without hesitation. I left the chat of that so-called family. Suddenly, the world became completely quiet. I knew how powerful the bomb I had just dropped was. From now on, they would be looking for me like crazy. The phone would heat up, and messages would flood my inbox. Maybe they would even come here, but I didn't feel the slightest bit of fear. In fact, I felt a little hopeful. I had lived, suppressed, for 6 years. It was time to try living in a different way. I put the last piece of sausage in the skillet. The color of the meat immediately changed in the hot sauce, swirling and releasing an enticing aroma that only high-quality ingredients have. At that moment, my cell phone rang again. It wasn't a call. It was a text message from an unknown number. The content was short but immediately made me frown. "Jessica, I'm a friend of Emily's. There's something about David and his family that I think you should know. It also has to do with your father-in-law's retirement party. They're hiding something from you." That message, like a thin thorn, pierced my mind without warning. A friend of Emily's. What could a friend of that shallow, shopping-addicted, and impression-obsessed person say about David, my in-laws, and even the retirement party? What were they hiding from me? 1,000 speculations ran through my mind in an instant. Did David give more money to his mother without my knowledge? Or perhaps they had another purpose in planning this party from which I was excluded from the beginning. Or maybe something worse. The 6 years of my marriage felt like the process of slowly boiling a frog in lukewarm water. I had lost all basic trust in this family. I looked at the message, hesitating whether I should reply. The waitress approached with a smile to tell me that my time at the table was almost up, asking if I wanted to order something else or if she should prepare the bill. I shook my head. The mac and cheese that had been so delicious until a moment ago had now lost its charm. That message, like a cloud, had clouded my mind. Finally, I replied, "Who are you, and what do you want to tell me?" The answer was almost immediate. "It's hard to talk on the phone. Jessica, if you want to know the truth, let's meet tomorrow at 3 p.m. at the coffee shop on the first floor of the Water Tower place. You'll understand why you were the only one not at the party and why David always sides with his family. Water Tower Place, a luxury mall, and the coffee shop on the first floor was not cheap. Being called by a supposed friend of Emily's to such a place seemed more like a trap than anything else. But her last sentence caught my attention. You'll understand why you were the only one not at the party. It wasn't simple negligence or exclusion. There was a hidden reason, and his almost pathological behavior of always defending his family. Until now, I had attributed it to a foolish son's devotion instilled by his mother since childhood. But what if there was something else? Curiosity grew in me like a weed. Reason told me not to go, that the probability of it being a bad joke or having some other intention was very high. But emotionally, I was drawn to the word truth. For 6 years, I had lived deceived like a fool. I gave everything, but I didn't receive even a little respect. I desperately wanted to know what fueled that family's arrogance and their treatment of me as if I were nothing. How can I trust you? I wrote. You don't have to. But think about the last 6 years of your life. Think about why they dared to treat you like that. Tomorrow at 3, I'll be waiting for you. If you're late, I'm gone. Her reply was quick and showed complete confidence that I would go. After that, she didn't reply to any more messages. I paid the bill with my mind in a turmoil. I had spent almost $100 on dinner tonight, which I usually spent on food for a week. But I felt it was worth it, not only because of the food, but because I had finally taken the first step to defend myself. When I left the pub, the cold night air greeted me. My cell phone started to vibrate again. On the screen, David's name was flashing. So insistent, I put it on silent and put it in my bag. I didn't answer the phone. Not now, at least. I needed to calm down and think carefully about this sudden message and whether I should go to the appointment tomorrow. I took a taxi home. What I called home was a rented 2-bedroom flat in a modest neighborhood, small and old. Most of my salary went into that endless pit. David's money was supposedly being saved to buy a house in the future. Now that I thought about it, only his mother, Karen, knew if that money still existed or how much there really was. As I was taking out the key to put in the lock, the door suddenly opened from the inside. David was standing in the doorway, his eyes red and with a dark expression. The smell of alcohol and cigarettes coming from him was nauseating. He had gotten home before me, probably because he couldn't pay. The atmosphere had become tense, and he was the first to flee. "You just got here," he shouted, loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. "Why aren't you answering the phone? Your head has gotten too big, huh?" He grabbed my arm tightly. He pulled me inside violently. I stumbled and almost fell. "Let go of me!" I tried to break free, but his fingers were gripping me like steel. "Jessica, today you embarrassed me in front of the whole family, all the relatives." His saliva almost touched my face. His expression was terrifying. "You dared to hang up on me, leave the group, say you wouldn't pay. Who gave you that kind of courage?" I gave it to myself. Anger overwhelmed me. I pushed him with all my strength and shouted, "Your family commits such cruelty, and you don't even let me speak? Are you happy treating me like a fool?" "A fool! You're nothing but a fool," he spat. "Telling you to pay was to do you a favor, to save face. Now, you better send me $6,000 right now." The embarrassment I experienced today was huge. In the end, my father had to borrow money from someone else to pay. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They had dinner, had no money to pay, and borrowed from someone else. "I don't have any money," I said coldly. "I spent it all on my dinner." "You." He raised his hand, ready to strike me. I lifted my head and looked at him directly, without fear. "David, you try and hit me. If you touch me with one finger, I'll call the police. Right now. I'll show all the neighbors, everyone, how the model son of the Millers abuses his wife." His hand remained in the air. He was a person who cared deeply about appearances, especially in front of others. No matter how his family treated me behind closed doors and how he ignored me, he always maintained a false facade on the outside. Perhaps he didn't expect me to react so strongly. "You, Jessica, you're crazy," he said, his chest heaving with anger. In the end, he didn't hit me. Instead, He pushed me violently. I crashed into the shoe cabinet and felt a sharp pain in my back. Listen carefully, Jessica. He pointed his finger at my face. This isn't over. Tomorrow, you're going to my mom's house. You're going to kneel, and you're going to apologize. And to Dad, too. Do you know how angry he is? Apologize? I stood up, holding my back. Seeing his furious face, I suddenly felt disgusted. What did I do wrong that I need to apologize? My mistake was not acting obediently like your ATM. Your mistake was not being obedient, not knowing your place. If you marry a miller, you have to follow the miller's rules. And the miller's rules say that the daughter-in-law should be treated badly, without rights, work like an ox, and be exploited to the last cent, I countered. Don't talk nonsense. His face turned red. When have we ever treated you badly at home? We gave you food and clothes. You gave me food and clothes? I cut him off, my voice trembling with indignation. David, put your hand on your heart and tell me. Who pays the rent for this apartment? Who pays the bills? For 6 years, while your mother held your bank account, have I spent a single cent of your money? Who is feeding whom here? My words seemed to have hit his weak spot. He fell silent for a moment, his gaze averted, unable to look me in the eyes. That's because Mom is saving up, so we can buy an apartment, he stammered, without conviction. An apartment? Have I ever seen that savings account? I took a step forward. For 6 years, not a trace of it. Didn't your mom say last time that she almost had enough for the down payment? Then how is it that now she can't even pay for a dinner of a few $1,000s, and Dad had to borrow money? As I spoke, my doubts grew larger. My mother-in-law usually boasted about how much money she had saved for us and how diligent she was. But when it really mattered, she couldn't produce a few $1,000s for dinner, and my father-in-law had to borrow. David didn't know what to answer to my questions and scratched his head nervously. That's because... Why? I repeated. Why? But he couldn't give a clear explanation. At that moment, his cell phone rang as if he were grabbing onto a lifebuoy. He answered it hurriedly. Yes, Mom. His tone immediately became obedient, though a bit fawning. On the other end, I heard my mother-in-law's loud and shrill voice. Even without it being on speaker, I could understand a few sentences. That ungrateful Jessica. We should never have let her into the house. Tomorrow, bring her here. I'll show her what's right. She's completely crazy. David nodded repeatedly. Yes, Mom. Don't get angry. It's bad for you. Tomorrow I'll bring her to apologize to you and Dad. After hanging up, he regained his arrogance and looked at me intensely. You heard? Tomorrow, you're coming with me to my parents' house, and don't you try any tricks. And if I don't go? I asked coldly. Would you dare? His eyes widened. We'll see if I dare or not. I held his gaze. David, I'm not the same Jessica anymore. If you don't treat me like a person, I don't have to treat you like one either. What do you mean? He seemed to notice that my behavior was strange today and looked at me with suspicion. David, from now on, we're splitting everything. The rent and the bills, 50-50. Groceries and household expenses, each one pays their own. Your money, give it to your mother or buy your sister a bag. Do whatever you want. I don't care one bit. But don't you think about taking a single cent from me. And as for your mother's problem, I paused and watched how his face deflated. The one who did it pays for it. You explain to her how that debt was created and how you're going to pay it. Don't look for me. After saying that, without looking at him again, I headed to the bedroom. Jessica, stay right there, he shouted at my back. I ignored him. I went straight to the room and locked it. I heard him kicking the door angrily and cursing. I leaned against the door, my heart beating fast and my palms sweating. I knew the war had just begun. The meeting tomorrow with my in-laws would surely be a huge battle. And that mysterious message. The person who called me, what exactly did they want to tell me? Was the truth they told me the key to getting out of this situation? I sat down on the floor and looked at the dark night sky, as black as coal. For the first time, I felt that this cold house needed a major change. and all the answers seemed to point to tomorrow at 3 p.m., the coffee shop at Water Tower Place. Should I go or not? Outside, David's insults had stopped, replaced by the sound of a call in which he was asking for help. He was probably calling his mother or sister to complain about my terrible behavior. I took a deep breath and made a decision. I had to go. Even if it was just a possibility, I needed to know. I needed to know what kind of lie I had been living in for the past 6 years. At that moment, my cell phone lit up again. It was the unknown number, another message. So, when we meet tomorrow, please come alone and be careful of your husband and his sister. This new message made the situation even more convoluted. Be careful of your husband and his sister. Could they suspect something? This didn't sound like my boring daily life, but a scene from a suspense film. Did David and Emily have a secret that they needed to hide so carefully? Something that no one should know? Outside, David's voice on the phone had lowered. He had probably gone to the balcony. I held my breath and heard him speak in a deep and restrained voice, full of irritation. Mom, I know. She's not in her right mind right now. Yes, I'll bring her. Don't worry. She can't escape. We have to get that money somehow. Yes, I know. Bye. Money. It was always money. They seemed to have an intense obsession with it. From the beginning of the marriage, my mother-in-law, for various reasons, had controlled David's bank account. At first, it was to save for your apartment. Later, it was high-return investments. I know an expert. And then it just became normal, as if David's money should be under her management by birthright. And I, because I loved David and with the innocent idea that between family there shouldn't be calculations, chose to trust them and be patient. Even when my mother fell seriously ill and needed money for surgery, and I dared to ask for a part of the money we had saved, my mother-in-law firmly refused, saying that all the money was in a time deposit and couldn't be touched. In the end, I had to ask for favors from relatives and friends to raise the money for the surgery. For a long time, I felt guilty about it, thinking that I had caused trouble for this family. Now, remembering it, every detail was full of strangeness and deception. Were they hiding something from me all this time? Did that money, supposedly saved to buy an apartment, really exist? Or had it been spent on something else? Maybe there was never that much money. A bold and chilling suspicion arose in my mind. What if David's income wasn't as high as he and his mother always boasted? What if the supposed savings were just a lie, an empty check to keep me tied down and continue to dedicate myself to this house? That's why, at the retirement party today, they couldn't pay. Not because they forgot their card, but because, from the beginning, they had no money. That's why they were demanding with such anger that I pay. That's why they were so embarrassed and angry when I rebelled. If this was true, then I had been a complete fool for the past 6 years, completely deceived by their false promises and their hypocritical performance. Suddenly, my heart started to beat faster, and blood rushed to my head. If my suspicions were true, this family wasn't just stingy and biased. It was a complete fraud and exploitation. I stood up abruptly and started to pace the room. I had to go to that appointment tomorrow. I had to know the truth. Whoever sent me the message, and whatever their intentions were, this could be my only chance to remove the hypocritical mask of this family. Outside, David must have finished his call because he was knocking on the bedroom door again. Jessica, come out. We need to talk. His tone was a little softer, but still a command. I ignored him. Talk. What else was there to talk about? He would probably try to use a mixture of threats and flattery, of a hard hand and a silk glove, so that tomorrow I would obediently go to apologize and give them money. The old me might have given in, but not anymore. I went to the door and told him coldly, "There's nothing to talk about. I'm tired, and I want to rest. Whatever it is, tomorrow you have to come with me to my parents' house. You have to," he insisted. "We'll see," I replied evasively. "Jessica, I'm telling you nicely." His anger flared up again. "My mom already said, if you don't go tomorrow, don't ever come back to the Miller's house." "That would be better," I said nonchalantly. Outside, it became quiet. He was probably stunned by my emotionless attitude. A few seconds later, I heard him say in a whisper, "Fine, you're amazing. You'll pay for this." Then, I heard his heavy footsteps heading to the living room, followed by the sound of a loud thud on the sofa. That night, he would sleep on the sofa. For me, perfect. I had no desire to see his face. That night, I could hardly sleep. I was tormented by all sorts of strange dreams. In one, my mother-in-law, Karen, was pointing at my face while insulting me. In another, David and Emily were whispering. And in another, I saw the anonymous text message and a faint female figure waiting for me in a coffee shop. The next day, when I woke up, the sun was already bright. The living room was quiet. I opened the bedroom door. David was gone. Seeing him would only be awkward. I took a shower and had a quick breakfast. As the afternoon approached, my heart grew smaller with each passing minute. Should I go or not? Did the person who called me have good intentions or bad? Was the truth waiting for me, or was it a trap? Around 11 a.m., my mother-in-law, Karen, called. I saw her name on the screen and put my cell phone on silent. I knew exactly why she was calling now. To pressure me. To force me to go to her house in the afternoon to be judged. I was not in the mood to deal with her. After cutting the call, Emily called immediately. I didn't answer either. It seemed they were mobilizing the whole family to call me. The more they did it, the more convinced I became that they were hiding something. Normally, if a daughter-in-law got angry, the whole family wouldn't need to pressure her in this way. It seemed they were afraid that I wouldn't go, or that I would come into contact with something they didn't want me to know. Around 2:30 p.m., I stood in front of the closet and finally chose an elegant office outfit. I put on a little makeup and looked at myself in the mirror. To my reflection with a firm gaze, I took a deep breath. Whatever was waiting for me, I had to face it. For the 6 years of youth and feelings that I had wasted, and for my future, I took my bag, left the house, and took a taxi to Water Tower Place. Throughout the ride, I was nervous. I arrived at the coffee shop on the first floor at 3 sharp. The atmosphere was elegant, and there weren't many customers. Soft music floated in the air. I found a discreet table by the window and sat down. I ordered a latte and carefully observed my surroundings. I didn't know what the person who called me looked like, nor did I know if she would come. Time passed, minute by minute. 2:55, 2:58, 3, exactly. People were coming in and out of the coffee shop, but no one approached me. My heart sank. Maybe it was just a bad joke. Just as I was starting to lose hope, a woman wearing a beige trench coat entered. She looked around, her eyes met mine for a few seconds, and then she walked straight to my table. "You're Jessica, right?" Her voice was cautious, with a slight nervousness. I examined her carefully. She was probably in her late 20s, with a pleasant and clean appearance. She didn't look like a liar, but in this day and age, nothing is more untrustworthy than outward appearance. "Yes, I am. Are you?" I asked cautiously. She nodded and sat down in front of me. "Thank you for coming. I know this is all very strange for you, but..." She looked around and lowered her voice. "There are things I think you should know about your husband, about your in-laws, and about the so-called savings." I got nervous. Indeed, it had to do with money. "What do you want to tell me?" I asked directly. She took a deep breath, as if making a big decision. "Jessica, do you know what your husband's real salary is? David's?" I fell silent. I had never thought about that question. David never talked about his work, and I had never seen one of his pay stubs. All the information about his income came from what he and his mother said, around $8,000 a month, with a bonus of several $1,000s at the end of the year. According to them, he was a key part of his company with a great future. Why was this woman asking me this question now? Was there a problem with his income? "Around $8,000, I said cautiously. She smiled bitterly. "Jessica, David's salary is $4,000. "What?" I almost shouted. $4,000, not $8,000? So they've been lying to me for 6 years? "How do you know?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Why?" She hesitated for a moment. "I work in the finance department of his company. I've seen his pay stubs." I felt dizzy. If David's salary was $4,000, then his mother's promise for the past 6 years that she was saving for our apartment was a complete lie. With a salary of $4,000, after deducting his personal expenses, how much could he have saved? And I, for 6 years, had covered almost all the household expenses: rent, bills, food, basic necessities. I was a complete fool. They had been lying to me for 6 years. And there's something worse, she continued. Jessica, do you know why your mother-in-law is so insistent that you pay the bill? I shook my head, bewildered. For yesterday's dinner, they didn't have the money to pay. David's salary for this month hasn't been deposited yet, and your mother-in-law has no money either. In the end, your father-in-law had to swallow his pride and borrow money from someone, promising to pay it back today. I started to tremble. That's why they were asking me for money so quickly today. Yes. She nodded. And they did something even worse. Jessica, do you remember when your mother got sick last year? Yes, I remember. It was one of the most desperate moments of my life. My mother had a sudden heart attack and needed emergency surgery that cost around $20,000. I asked David to use the money we had saved, but his mother firmly refused. I know, I said bitterly. She said the money was in a time deposit and couldn't be touched. A lie, she said firmly. At that moment, your sister-in-law, Emily, wanted to buy a car. Your mother-in-law took the only $5,000 that was in David's account and gave it to Emily for the down payment of the car. I felt my blood run cold. What? What did you say? When my mother needed money for surgery, your mother-in-law gave all the money in David's account to your sister-in-law for a car and told me I had no money and had to manage on my own? I felt dizzy. While I was desperately asking for money to save my mother, Emily was driving a car bought with our money and bragging about it on Instagram. While I felt guilty for a year, thinking I was a burden to the family, they were laughing at me behind my back. Tears welled up, but I forced them back. I didn't want to break down in front of a stranger. Why? Why are you telling me all this? I asked, crying. She looked at me, her eyes showing compassion and anger, because I can't stand to see it anymore. Jessica, you're a good person. You don't deserve to be treated like that. And she hesitated for a moment. My mother was also a daughter-in-law like that. After 30 years of abuse, she committed suicide due to depression. I don't want you to follow the same path, I finally cried. All the sadness, anger, and frustration of 6 years exploded in that moment. I finally understood. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough. It wasn't that I didn't try hard enough or wasn't respectful enough. It just so happened that I had met a group of scammers dressed in sheep's clothing. And also, she continued, passing me a handkerchief. Do you know why they were suddenly in such a hurry to have you apologize and pay? I wiped my tears and shook my head. The money your father-in-law borrowed yesterday was from a loan shark. What? A loan shark? My eyes widened in shock. Yes. Because they had no other choice. He borrowed $6,000 from a lender, promising to return $7,200 today with interest. If he doesn't, she didn't finish the sentence, but I knew what it meant. If they didn't pay, there would be serious consequences. That's why they were pressuring me in such a desperate and angry way. So what do I do now? I asked, scared. You don't have to worry about that anymore, Jessica, she said firmly. You've sacrificed enough for them. Now is the time to live for yourself. She took out her cell phone and showed me some pictures. This is a copy of David's pay stub that I secretly made, and this is the bank record of the transfer your mother-in-law made to Emily for the car. If you need it, I can testify. I looked at the irrefutable evidence and felt a mixture of emotions. All my sadness for the past 6 years had a reason. Thank you, I held her hand. Honestly, thank you for telling me all this. You're welcome, Jessica. I hope you can break free from them and live your own life. We talked for over an hour. She told me other details. For example, that David's real position in the company was just an ordinary administrative assistant, not a key part, that my mother-in-law, in recent years, had not only spent David's salary but also frequently borrowed money from relatives and friends on the pretext of buying our house, but in reality, she was spending it all on clothes, bags, and cosmetics for Emily. That Emily's car, not only the down payment but also the monthly installments, were paid by my mother-in-law with the money she took from David's salary. And I, like a real fool, not only covered all the household expenses but sometimes, under their emotional blackmail, also had to pay for their luxuries. When I left the coffee shop, I felt a sense of lightness. Not because the problem was solved, but because I finally knew the truth. I no longer had to doubt myself or feel guilty. I was simply a victim, the victim of a carefully organized scam. And now, it was time to fight back. When I got home, David was sitting in the living room. When he saw me come in, he immediately stood up. "Where were you? Why didn't you answer the phone?" His voice was a mixture of anxiety and anger. I didn't answer and went straight to the sofa. "Jessica, I'm asking you," he raised his voice. "I heard you," I said calmly. "I was having coffee." "Coffee?" he roared. "Don't you understand the situation? Mom has been waiting all afternoon for you to apologize, and you have the nerve to go for coffee?" "David," I lifted my head and looked at him, my gaze colder than ever. "We need to talk." "Talk about what?" "This is not the time to talk. Come on, let's go to my parents' house, to apologize, and pay the money. Let's talk about your real salary," I said calmly. His face immediately changed color. "What? What real salary? I don't know what you're talking about." "4,000, I said, enunciating each syllable. "Your salary is $4,000, not 8,000, right?" David's face turned pale. "What? What nonsense are you talking about? My salary is 8,000, of course. Don't think about such things. I have evidence." I took out my cell phone and showed him the pictures she had sent me. "This is your pay stub, and this is the bank statement. 6 years, David. You've been lying to me for 6 years." He was stunned when he saw the cell phone screen. "Where did you get this?" "That doesn't matter. What matters is that I know everything now." I stood up and looked down at him. "You treated me like a fool for 6 years. Jessica, listen to me. I can explain." He tried to grab my hand nervously. "Explain what? Why did you lie to me? Why did your mother use our money to buy your sister a car? Why, when my mother was sick, did you let me borrow from a loan shark before you touched a single cent of your money? That wasn't a loan shark." He defended himself incoherently. "No? Then what was the money your father borrowed yesterday that he had to pay back today?" $7,200. JV fell silent, perhaps not expecting me to know so many details. "Jessica, we had no other choice," he tried to plead. "Enough," I cut him off. "David, you're not 3 years old, are you? You have arms and legs and a job. Why do you live at your wife's expense? Why do you make your wife pay your family's debts?" He stammered, unable to form a clear sentence. Seeing his pathetic appearance, I felt disgusted. This was the man I had loved with all my heart for 6 years. This was the husband I had given everything to. He wasn't a man. He was simply a puppet controlled by his mother, a tool created to steal my money and my feelings. "David, let's get a divorce," I said with complete calmness. His eyes widened with an expression of disbelief. "What? What did you say?" "Let's get a divorce," I repeated. "This marriage has been a scam from the beginning. I don't want to continue it." "No, we're not getting a divorce." He stood up anxiously. "Jessica, calm down. Let's talk about this properly." "There's nothing to talk about." I shook my head. "David, I'm tired. 6 years. You've been deceiving me like a fool for 6 years. My youth, my money, my feelings. You've consumed it all. I don't want to live like this anymore. But we're married. Between a husband and wife, there's nothing that can't be solved," he said, almost in tears. I snorted. "Marriage is between equals. It's about supporting each other. It's not one person desperately sacrificing while the other desperately steals." "David, put your hand on your heart and tell me, in these 6 years, what have you done for this house? What have you done for me?" He opened his mouth but said nothing because he knew it himself. "Even if we don't get a divorce, do you think we can go back to how things were?" I know everything now. I know how you deceived me. Do you think I can treat you the same way? David fell silent. He also knew that the situation could not be reversed. Trust, once broken, can never be repaired. I'll tell my mom to give you the money back, he said in a last desperate attempt. Forget it, I shook my head. Where would she get the money? The money she spent on your sister in the last 6 years is more than your total salary, and even if she did give it back to me, I don't want it anymore. Then what do we do now? He asked, bewildered. Simple. I went to the bedroom and started packing. Tomorrow, we're going to court and filing for divorce. You stay in this apartment. The rent, you figure it out. I'm taking my things tonight. Jessica, don't do this. He followed me, trying to stop me. Let's think about it again. If not, I'll ask my mom for the money. If your mom had money, would she have asked me for it today? I said without turning around. David, wake up. Your mother sold you a long time ago. Now she just wants me to pay for the mess. I quickly packed my clothes and valuables. In 6 years of marriage, it was surprising how little I could take with me. Not because I had few things, but because most of them were bought and used by me alone. In this house, there was no place for me. As I was packing, the doorbell rang. David rushed to open it. It was my mother-in-law, Karen, and my sister-in-law, Emily. They came in and started a new attack. Jessica, where have you been? My mother-in-law shouted in her shrill voice. We've been waiting for you all afternoon, because of you. That's right, sister-in-law. You're so disrespectful, said Emily. You dared not to come to Dad's party. I came out of the room and looked at the mother and daughter. For the first time in 6 years, I found them ridiculous. 2 parasites living off others dared to criticize me. It's not that I didn't want to go, I said calmly, but you didn't let me. We didn't let you? What nonsense are you talking about? My mother-in-law still tried to make excuses. Enough, I cut her off. Karen, stop acting. I know everything. What do you know? She asked, as if I had hit a sore spot. I know David's real salary. I know you used our money to buy Emily a car. I know you borrowed money from a loan shark. And I know the real reason you're asking me for money now. I know everything. I enumerated each point, watching how their faces hardened. I don't know what you're talking about, Karen firmly denied. You don't know? I took out my cell phone. I have evidence. The bank statement, the pay stub, the transfer records. I have everything. Karen, you've been deceiving me for 6 years. Let's calculate slowly. Seeing the pictures on the cell phone, her face immediately turned pale. Where did you get that? That doesn't matter. What matters is that David and I are getting a divorce. Divorce? Shouted Emily. Why are you getting a divorce? Because you've been deceiving me for 6 years. You've been using my money for 6 years. And you've been treating me like a fool for 6 years. I looked at her coldly. Emily, the car you're driving was bought with our money. According to the law, half of that car is mine. Don't talk nonsense. My mom bought it for me, she interjected. And what did your mother use to buy it? She has no job or income. I took a step forward. That money came from David's salary. And David is my husband. His money, in theory, is our communal property. So do I have a right to a part of that car, or not? Emily didn't know what to answer. Seeing that the situation was turning against her, Karen immediately changed to a sad expression. Jessica, we're family. Why are you calculating like that? Family? I snorted. Yesterday, you yourself said that it was just a gathering for your family, and if I went, I would be an inconvenience. And now we're a family again? I said that because I was angry. She tried to make an excuse. Enough, Karen. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Tomorrow, David and I are getting a divorce. From now on, we're strangers. Your problems have nothing to do with me. No, she suddenly became anxious. You can't get a divorce. If you get a divorce, what will happen to us? She finally revealed her true intentions. It wasn't that they missed their daughter-in-law, but they missed their ATM. Without me, how could they maintain their standard of living? With David's salary of $4,000, it would barely be enough to pay the rent. What will happen to you is not my problem, I said nonchalantly. David is an adult. He can manage. Jessica, don't do this. David still didn't give up. Don't call me by my name. I looked at him with disgust. David, I pity you. At 32, you live at your wife's expense and make your wife pay your family's debts. What right do you have to say my name? He was stung by my insult but said nothing because everything I said was true. At that moment, Karen suddenly knelt down. Jessica, I'm begging you, she grabbed my legs. Don't get a divorce, okay? We were wrong. We'll fix it, I promise you. I felt nothing but revulsion for her. I felt no pity. For the first time in 6 years, she was talking to me with kindness. She was pleading with me for the first time, but it was too late. Karen, get up, I pushed her away. The more you do this, the more disgusted I am. Then we'll give you the money back. We'll do everything to give it back to you, she said, crying. Give the money back? From where? I snorted. The money you spent on Emily in the last 6 years exceeds $50,000. How are you going to pay it back? Karen cried even louder, but I didn't feel the slightest bit of pity. Her tears today were not even 1,000th of the tears I had shed in the last 6 years. Mom, don't beg her. Emily suddenly got angry. What's the big deal about a divorce? If she wants to get a divorce, let her. We can live without her. I looked at her and couldn't help but laugh. Emily, you're right. You don't have me. Without me, you can live just fine. With your brother's salary of $4,000 for you and your mother, it's more than enough. She realized she had made a mistake. Without my financial support, they would find it difficult to maintain even a basic standard of living, not to mention their life of luxury. But I didn't care anymore. I had given them too much. Now it was their turn to face the consequences. I continued to pack. They were crying and begging beside me, trying to stop me, but my heart was as hard as a rock, unmoved. When I finished packing everything and was ready to leave, David stopped me. Jessica, for the last time, I'm begging you. His eyes were full of tears. Can't you give me another chance? Honestly, I'll fix it, I promise you. I stopped and looked at him. This man, who had once made my heart beat, now seemed like a pitiful insect. David, do you know what I regret the most? I asked calmly. He shook his head. I don't regret marrying you. I regret that it took me 6 years to find out who you really are. After saying that, without looking back, I left my former home. From now on, I would live for myself. Behind me, I could hear their cries, but I didn't turn back. This time, I was truly leaving, towards my new life. 6 months later, in a one-bedroom apartment I had rented, I was watching the news on my cell phone. Massive brawl in a luxury hotel over a debt dispute. In the blurry CCTV footage, I recognized the figures of David and Karen. It seemed the problem with the loan shark had finally exploded. I turned off my cell phone. I felt no pity. That was the punishment they deserved. And I was doing very well now. After the divorce, I got a job with a higher salary and moved closer to the office. Without the chains of that family, the quality of my life had improved greatly. I started taking painting classes, practicing yoga, and traveling with my friends. I regained the joy and freedom that I had long forgotten. Sometimes I think that if it weren't for her advice, I would probably still be swimming in that mud. I am grateful to all the good people who appear in life, and I am also grateful for that pain that woke me up. Thanks to them, I learned a lesson. Some people are not worthy of your dedication, and some feelings are not worthy of your patience. Learning to cut ties at the right time is the most important skill an adult can possess. Thank you all for following. I hope this story has sparked your interest in social issues. If you are moved, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. Together, let's spread positive energy and protect the light.